Welcome back to the Ice Vision podcast, coming out right before the start of the final round of the NHL playoffs. And that's what we're talking today. We're talking the Western Conference Final, the Eastern Conference Final, giving some playoff previews, and then maybe we'll talk a little bit about Canada's favorite team, the Toronto Maple Leafs. Heartbreaking loss in the conference semifinal to the Florida Panthers, which is, there's been a lot of talk about it, and I'll get a little more in depth on it. But it was a series Toronto probably wasn't going to win and wasn't expected to win. But there is a reason. There's been a lot of frustration with Leafs fans. But we're going to save that for later on, or maybe a later podcast. For now, we're really going to focus on the upcoming series here. So the Western Conference Final, the Eastern Conference Final, Dallas versus Edmonton, and Carolina versus Florida. These are going to be some good hockey series here. The Western Conference Final is going to be one of the most exciting series in these playoffs, I think. It's going to rival the Dallas and Colorado series we saw in round one, I believe. Similarly, it's going to be that much of a battle for Dallas. Of course, everybody knows what my opinion is on Dallas. I think they're the favorite this year, but Edmonton has more than a chance, and actually Edmonton is probably most people's favorites. I know the Athletics model has Edmonton above Dallas right now, and I believe has Edmonton as the favorite for the Cup. And similarly, I've seen Evolving Hockey as well. Their model also favors Edmonton in this series. So it's going to be interesting either way. I still personally believe in Dallas, but we'll go a little more in depth here in a second and talk about that. Similarly, in the Eastern Conference Final, I'm with what the rest of the market thinks in this series. I just think that Florida is the better team, and Carolina similarly has lacked the star power and the goal scoring talent to really compete with Florida's team. And that's going to be the big deciding factor here, but we'll go a lot more in depth on that series a little later on. For now, we want to get started first with the Western Conference Finals. So Dallas is on paper, I think they have the better lineup, at least at the forward end. Defense, I do think Edmonton, when fully healthy, has the better decor. But Dallas's lineup, as I've said multiple times, I think their forward core is just that much better. The big problem is, and what's been pointed out a lot recently, is a lot of them have been underperforming. Now, it's funny to say they've been underperforming considering how good they've looked. But like Tyler Seguin doesn't have many 5-on-5 points. Jason Robertson, since coming back, has no points at 5-on-5. Jamie Benn has been subpar, really. Matt Duchene has no 5-on-5 points in the playoffs. A lot of these guys aren't producing, but they are getting production from Wyatt Johnson, though it hasn't been, point to game production. It's consistent production, and he's scoring in big moments, which is important. And most importantly, they've been getting the production from Mikko Rantanen. So that is the really important part here is that Mikko Rantanen has kind of been that all-star, the star that Dallas lacked last year when they played Edmonton. So yeah, I absolutely think forward and Dallas on paper has the better lineup, but the Oilers' depth has been outstanding so far in the playoffs. Guys like Connor Brown, guys like Adam Henrique, these guys that didn't really stand out in the regular season have really taken it to another level. And big shouts out to Coach Chris Knobloch, who has really kind of unlocked a lot of these guys further down the lineup. And that's not even talking about a guy like Leon Draisaitl, who really hasn't been that offensive catalyst, but has really stepped up and been that high-end defensive forward for them. Big part of why Jack Eichel was unable to score in the Vegas series was because Draisaitl was shadowing him the entire time. And so I think that's going to be very important going into the series. The one issue is if Dallas gets rolling three lines, it's going to be very hard to match up, and especially if those lines start scoring, right? If you have to choose who you send your shutdown defensive forward out there against, do you choose Mikko Rantanen, especially when Mikko Rantanen's being double shifted as well, or do you choose, a Wyatt Johnson, a Jason Robertson? Obviously, those guys need to be scoring for it to be an issue because right now it's very easy to just look at Mikko Rantanen and say that's the guy we're targeting. But if some of those other guys get scoring, it's going to be very hard for Edmonton to shut down every single line on Dallas. And that was an issue that Winnipeg ran into, and it was an issue that Colorado ultimately ended up running into, is that it's just hard to shut down those lines when all of them are rolling, right? Even if the scoring is specifically coming from Rantanen's line, every single line was just controlling the pace of play night in and night out in those series, right? So I think that's going to be the key going into this series is if those guys get firing, if everybody gets scoring, it's going to be really hard to stop Dallas. And more importantly, I think going right into for the rest of the playoffs, if everybody starts scoring on Dallas, they're going to be impossible to stop because on paper, that's the best offensive group in the league right now. It's just a matter of can the puck start going in the net. Outside of that, we also got to talk about Miro Heiskanen, who really returned to form in Game 6 of the semifinals in the Western Conference there against Winnipeg. He I think the number I saw was he outchanced the opposing team 44-16 in his minutes. Now, I know there's a big debate on Sportsnet between Bieksa and Freeman over what exactly is a scoring chance. I personally like the way they count them. I'm not going to get too in depth on that, but regardless, the point of that stat and what it's showing is that Heiskanen was out there and they controlled play the entire time. And that's just a style of play, right? I mean, he's an elite shutdown guy. He uses his skating to shut down plays right away before you can even get it. And while he's not overly physical, what he does do is he just gains possession of the puck and is able to get it up ice quick, typically with his skating, but he's also a really good playmaker too, and he's able to just move it nonstop. So that is going to be a big part of their game, and if Heiskanen is in that form, that's another issue Edmonton has. Like I said, a lot of models right now favor Edmonton, but a lot of them aren't really taking into account that Heiskanen wasn't back yet, right? A lot of them are considering, Dallas's play without Heiskanen, and a lot of their players do factor into that. A lot of the lack of scoring up and down the lineup is based on the fact that Heiskanen wasn't in the lineup for most of the playoffs, right? So that is something to keep an eye on too. I wouldn't be surprised if a guy like Jason Robertson, now that he's back, he's fully healthy, and Heiskanen is kind of back to full strength and returned to form finally. It wouldn't surprise me if Robertson kind of took off because Dallas is just getting that much more zone time, and Robertson, by extension, is going to get a lot more offensive opportunities. So something to keep an eye out for. Heiskanen is the kind of X factor for this series for Dallas. And then on the flip side, of course, Matthias Ekholm should be back for the Oilers by game 3. That's what I keep seeing anyways. He's going to miss game 1 and 2, but he should be back by game 3. And when Ekholm's back, that defense group is one of the best in the league. Obviously, you got the offensive dynamo in it, Evan Bouchard, and then Ekholm's one of the best two-way shutdown guys in the league. He's a good puck mover, but he's just so good at using his skating to shut down offensive opportunities before they can even happen on the rush. And then even a guy like Darnell Nurse, who by no means is my favorite defenseman in the league, but he has been passable in this playoffs at the very least. $9 million defenseman, no, but he doesn't have to be anymore. He just needs to win his minutes, and thus far he has been able to win his minutes. And then Jake Wallman, what a great trade that was. Wallman has been outstanding for them as well. A big part of why their penalty kill kind of was better against Vegas in the second round, though the penalty kill is still a bit of a weakness for them. Ekholm coming back will fix that as well. And that's the other key tactical issue here between Dallas and Edmonton is the power play and penalty kill. Dallas's penalty kill has been pretty good. Edmonton's power play has been all right, but definitely not at the level you've seen for Edmonton in the past. On the flip side, Dallas's power play has been very good these playoffs, while Edmonton's penalty kill has been not great. Obviously, again, against Vegas, they were better, so it'll be interesting to see if that carries in, but Vegas's power play also is a lot easier to shut down than a power play like Dallas, which is a lot of motion, a lot of movement, and just a ton of skill out there, right? So that'll be another key tactical issue that Edmonton's going to have to consider going into this series, or if nothing else, just try to stay out of the block as much as possible. And we are deeper in the playoffs, so there's a good chance that the whistles are going to get put away a lot more. I think even in those last couple games in the second round, there was only 2 or 3 penalties for most of those games, right? So I mean that is something to keep in mind too. But on the flip side, you also want to maximize those opportunities. So if Dallas can get out there and they can score at a 30-40% clip, which I know is high, but if you think about that 30-40% for the series, that's 4 or 5 goals that they'll be adding that Edmonton might not be able to add on their end, right? When you combine that with a 5-on-5 play and 5-on-5 production, it's going to be very hard for Edmonton to catch up. So that's a big thing. The special teams is going to be a big issue. Obviously, again, Ekholm comes back for game 3. That is going to change that penalty kill. It's going to make it a lot better, and it's making it a lot harder for Dallas to score, which really puts the onus on Dallas to come out flying right at the start here as well, right? They really need to capitalize on Edmonton being down that defenseman, right? Because the one final area to talk about is the goaltenders, where Dallas has a clear advantage with Jake Ottinger, right? Ottinger is definitely a better goalie than Stuart Skinner. He's definitely a better goalie than Calvin Pickard if Edmonton decides to go that way. And so it's going to be a lot harder for Edmonton to score when they get those grade A chances, whereas Dallas is going to have a pretty easy time picking the holes in Skinner and Pickard. I will give Edmonton credit, though. They have done a good job of taking away those really dangerous cross-crease passes and just letting Skinner get big and take away all the holes. So it's not going to be easy for Dallas to score, but if I had to put money on who's going to steal a series, it's definitely Jake Ottinger over Stuart Skinner, right? So that is the other key area to focus on. Keeping with talking about the tactical preview, again, we got article from Bruce Carlock here from Oilers Nation, who really kind of broke down the tactical preview. Go check it out. I'm not going to give you everything on it, but his big highlight was the Dallas 1-2-2 forecheck. It's very key to their offensive production. It's all about forcing turnovers that their teams, like great offensive players, can capitalize on. Similarly, how the Oilers can counter is through that low center support, so bringing like McDavid, Draisaitl back low in the zone, supporting their defenders, because again, Dallas is doing that 1-2-2, but what they're doing is they're really stacking that one side, right? So if you can get your center down low, get a puck into the middle to your center quickly, a nice easy pass, and then a quick east-west pass across to the far side of the ice, there's a ton of open ice there that Edmonton capitalize on. And to build on that point as well, what's very important when you're playing against Dallas is that one side of their decor is very weak, whether it's Cody Ceci, Ilya Labushkin, or some of the other guys they got back on that decor, outside of Heiskanen, Harley, and Lindell, you can definitely take advantage of some of the weaknesses Dallas has on their decor. So if Edmonton can do that, if they can get that low center support and get that puck across the ice and kind of create those odd man rushes going back the other way, they can definitely victimize some of those defensemen. So that's, I think, the key moment and what's going to be the difference in this series. Can Dallas kind of clean up that side of their game and prevent those odd man rushes coming? Are they going to make any adjustments to really account for that? Or is Edmonton just going to run away with it just because Dallas is unable to really generate any offense, one, off their forecheck, and two, really defend against that rush opportunities that Edmonton's going to get? Um, yeah. And then just the final note on here, the key question for this series, I think, for anything else besides the tactical implications and everything, is can the Oilers keep relying on the production of Connor Brown? Brown has been outstanding for them in the playoffs, but keep in mind, really all of Edmonton's depth, and this question can really apply to all their depth players like Adam Henrique, Zach Hyman, though to a lesser extent. McDavid and Draisaitl both broke 100 points this year, but nobody else in the Oilers broke 50 points. So can they rely on the production of those guys going forward? Obviously, Evander Kane didn't play in the regular season. He likely would have, and he's been pretty good in the playoffs. But Connor Brown, can you continue to rely on that, or is this hot streak going to come to an end? Obviously, the underlying numbers have looked great, and I would bet on it. And again, that's big on Knobloch too for finding the right line combinations and the way to play. But that is one thing that's very key for Edmonton is can those guys keep up that production? On the flip side, will Dallas's underperforming forwards, much like Jason Robertson, like Tyler Seguin, Jamie Benn, the guys that really haven't been scoring all that much, Matt Duchene being another one, can some of them, find some opportunities in this series? Again, when you consider the forward line matching up, they're going to get some they're going to get some good matchups ideally, right? Draisaitl can't be out there shutting down every single line on that team. McDavid can't be out there just dominating every single line on the team. So one of those lines of Duchene or Robertson or Rantanen are going to find themselves out there against or against the kind of weaker depth that Edmonton has at that lower end of their lineup, and they're going to have to capitalize on those opportunities. So it's going to be very interesting to see how that works out, and that is really going to be a key thing for this series. Ultimately, like I said, Dallas has been my favorite all the way through this postseason. I'm going to stick by them. I'm not going to change my answer or anything. I think the finishing talent and the overall forward depth is just too much to handle. Combine that with just the better goaltending, I think Dallas is going to pull away in this series. But again, I think it's going 7 games. It could absolutely go either way. I just think if I had to bet on one of these two teams, Dallas would be the one I'd pick. And yeah, that's all for that series. And now moving on to the Eastern Conference Finals. So this is Carolina and Florida, two heavy forechecking teams, two great defensive teams, two teams that have actually produced pretty well offensively, but there's one key difference between the two. And that is Florida has the star power. They got Alexander Barkov. They got Sam Reinhart. They got Matthew Tkachuk. Even though he hasn't been playing overly well in the playoffs, no points in the Toronto series, they still have that star power that can really tip the odds in a team's favor one way or another. Not to say Carolina doesn't have elite players or star players. Sebastian Aho, obviously their top player, their best forward. Andrei Svechnikov has been that high-end offensive player that they've been kind of looking for these playoffs, but he's relatively unproven and hasn't really done it long-term enough for it to be something you can bet on going into this playoff series. And then Seth Jarvis is just outstanding as well. He's that undersized but just gritty, hard-working player, and he's got a ton of offensive ability as well. Consistent 60-point threat. Like, these are all guys that can absolutely produce and create offense. It's just none of them are scoring outside of Aho. None of them are scoring at above a point a game clip. And even then, Barkov's got similar production to Sebastian Aho, but he does it while being the best defensive forward in the league, right? So that is a key issue, I would say, that Carolina is running into, and it's nothing new, right? This has been Carolina's issue for years. They tried to fix it earlier in the season with Mikko Rantanen. That didn't end up working out for multiple reasons. I do wonder what Rantanen would have looked like with this team in the playoffs. I know we talked at length already about Rantanen and how good I think he is, but regardless, they don't have that absolutely elite talent. And that's in any series, if they get to the final, whether they're playing Dallas or Edmonton as well, if they get to the final, they're going to run into that issue again. So that's just how that's got to go. The one advantage they have in this series, and what I think, or the two advantages I will say, is that I think their decor is better than Florida's. Um, I would say almost pretty significantly, though Florida obviously does have a guy like Seth Jones who has kind of been overperforming what was expected of him. And that could be kind of a key issue for Carolina if Florida's decor can kind of match their decor. But outside of that, like Jacob Slavin will likely be the best defenseman in the series. I think Gustav Forsling is also good as well, but I think Slavin is just outstanding. Could arguably be the best defenseman left in the playoffs outside of maybe a Miro Heiskanen or Evan Bouchard. But regardless, that is one key area where they do have an advantage, at least on the depth chart. And then the other one is in goaltending. Now, Sergei Bobrovsky is a great playoff goalie. He has been for a number of years now, and he looked shaky to start the playoffs. He wasn't great in the first round. In the second round, he was better in the back half, though off the start he looked kind of shaky as well. But to contrast that, you have Freddie Anderson, who has been outstanding all playoffs. Now, Anderson typically is an outstanding goaltender. His problem has always been consistency, mostly due to injury. Can he stay healthy enough in this series? Can he hold them in? That's going to be a key question for them this series. And I think that's in a way that's Carolina's key to success here. That's how they're going to win this series. Is Anderson's going to have to stand on their head. They're going to have to get a couple of key goals from guys like Jarvis, from guys like Svechnikov. Maybe a rookie like Logan Stankoven can kind of step up and take over as well. But any one of those guys, like that is the key right there. It all hinges on how Freddie Anderson plays. Can he shut out the Florida Panthers offense, which is a tough task because the Panthers offense, we've talked at length about it, that heavy forecheck, that hard forecheck that just forces turnovers and forces those dangerous broken plays that typically goalies can't save you from. Like even the best goalies in the league struggle to save those turnovers off of the forecheck into those like low 2-on-0s, low 2-on-1s and stuff. So that's going to be very hard. Anderson's going to have to stand on his head. And it's not like Carolina can just prevent that from happening because they're literally playing the best team in the league at creating those opportunities. So it's going to happen. Anderson's going to have to stand on his head and prevent some of those from going in. And then Carolina's going to have to give him some goals the other way. And the big problem is that they just don't have that one guy. They don't have that Reinhardt. They don't have that Kachuk. They don't have that Barkov that you know can create those opportunities. They have a couple who have consistently done it, sure, but not at the level of an absolute star offensive player like your Barkov, your Reinhardt, or your Kachuk. And so that's going to be a big issue, I would say. Carolina is a strong possession team, and that is, that kind of owes to their way to win this series is that they get a couple key saves, a couple big goals early on in the games, and then they just hold that possession and don't give Florida the opportunities. That's going to be key. And Florida, similarly, because their forecheck is so aggressive, Carolina's decor has quite a few good puck movers. They should be able to beat that first layer of pressure and get the puck moving the other way and create that sustained pressure in the offensive zone to just hold on to leads. That should be possible for them. The biggest thing again is just going to be limiting the chances Florida gets and then Anderson saving those chances. So I'm going to keep going back to that. Anderson has to be the best player in this series if Carolina wants a chance to win this because, Florida's going to get their chances. It's a matter of how many they get and how many Anderson saves. That's going to be the key difference, right? Because Carolina doesn't have the offense that they can put up 4 or 5 goals a game against Florida. They just aren't going to be able to. They're going to have to win some 2-1 games. They're going to have to win some 3-2 games. So yeah, Anderson has to be the best player in this series. And then talking about the forward depth again, like I said, Carolina has kind of thrived these playoffs thus far on the forward depth. Again, they lack maybe the star power, but when you're playing against Montreal, when you're playing against Washington, teams that definitely have depth, but not depth on the level Carolina has, right? That's how they were able to dominate. You just roll 4 lines and you're consistently controlling the pace of play. Eventually, the pucks start going in the net. Carolina doesn't have that depth advantage that they had in the earlier rounds, right? So that's going to be their big issue. You think about Florida's best line in the second round there was that line of Lusterine and Lundell and Marchand, right? Marchand was the most productive player in the series playing on the third line. So Carolina, a team that has that depth advantage typically, does not have that against Florida. So they're not going to just be able to roll 4 lines, control the pace of play, and just wait for the pucks to go in the back of the net. The other team's going to get chances regardless, and the other team is going to control play just as much as Carolina does. And it's going to be, it's going to be about the other areas where Carolina does have the advantage, such as goaltending and defense. Um, And again, like I said, and I really want to emphasize this, the biggest advantage for Carolina is on that defensive end. You need quick retrievals and quick puck movement to counter that heavy forecheck. Carolina needs to produce off the rush as well. This is going to be key for them as well. They do have some good rush players. Logan Stankoven is a great transition player. He's speedy, he's skilled, he can score off the rush. Seth Jarvis, similarly. Andrei Svechnikov can do it. Sebastian Aho can do it. So they need that quick strike counterattack. They need to take advantage of the over aggressiveness of Florida's forecheck, get those odd man rushes the other way, convert on a couple, and then just hold possession like they're so good at. Okay, moving on. Key question for this series, and we kind of mentioned him already, but can Andrei Svechnikov step up and be the offensive catalyst that Carolina needs to get through these finals? They've been missing it for years. They have been missing that Connor McDavid. They've been missing that Mikko Rantanen. They have been missing that Nikita Kucherov. They have been missing that level of player that is capable of just taking over a game. Svechnikov has the skill to do it. He was drafted high. When he was drafted, he was expected to be that level of player. And while he's been a fine player, he's been a 60-point player most of his career, very productive, has come up with some big goals. He hasn't really stepped out to be the absolute best offensive player on the team yet. He has the skill set to do it. Can he take over this series if Carolina needs somebody to do it? That's going to be the big question for them. Similarly, for Florida, does Matthew Tkachuk return to form? Had no points in the last round. And, Tkachuk was a big reason why Florida made it to the finals 2 years ago. He's a big reason why they won the cup last year. And if Florida wants to have a chance at winning the cup this year, Tkachuk needs to return to form. I think they can beat Carolina without him. But if they're coming against Dallas or Edmonton, they're going to need that second layer of offense that Tkachuk provides. You can't. Obviously, Bennett has been fine. Obviously, Marchand has been good in that as that secondary layer of offense. But you cannot rely on them when you're going up against the offensive juggernauts of the Oilers and the Stars. So that's going to be an interesting thing to pay attention to this series is Matthew Tkachuk. Can he return to form? Can he be that offensive catalyst that he needs to be? Can he score the big goals? Can he be that top playoff performer like we know he can be, like he's shown in the playoffs, like he showed at the Four Nations? And now again, I understand he's probably playing hurt. He missed the back half of the season after the Four Nation due to injury. He was probably playing hurt the moment he stepped in the lineup in round one. He was still pretty decent in the Tampa series. It was just last series where he wasn't as effective, at least not on the box score, anyways. So it'd be interesting. Also, finally, a bonus key question for Carolina, and that's in the form of Alexander Nikishin. So I've talked at length already about Carolina's advantage on defense. Nikishin is 23 years old. He was a captain for his KHL team, was very productive in the KHL. I want to say point a game player as a defenseman. 6'4", great skater, great puck mover. The only issue with him is he's played one NHL game. He came over just before the playoffs started, got his first game in last round. So he lacks a little bit of experience compared to the rest of the Carolina's decor. The thing is, though, Nikishin is arguably their secret weapon against Florida because you think Florida's big thing is that heavy forecheck that you beat by moving the puck well. Nikishin is a great skater, a great puck mover, and he's 6'6" or 6'4", whatever the hell he is. He's a big guy that is going to be able to fend off a rush on his own and could be a one-man breakout for Carolina in this series, or at the very least could be huge for their breakout opportunities. So the big question is, does he get into the series and does he get the minutes to be successful? Because his skill set is arguably perfect for Carolina. It will help him so much in this series. It's just a matter of, is he going to be trusted and is he able to step up into that moment? I wouldn't be surprised if he gets into the lineup, gets maybe 13 minutes game one and kind of shows out if you slowly start to see his minutes improve. Because again, it's not like he hasn't played professional. He's played against men in the KHL for a number of years now and been very productive in that role. So he can absolutely step up and play against men. It's just a matter of can he take that next step and do it at the NHL level. His one game he played, I thought he looked good against Washington. It's just a matter of can he be consistent, continue to carry that forward, and he could be a big piece for Carolina in this series and could be a large part of why they are able to succeed, right? Obviously, again, like I said, they need to move the puck out of their zone early. They need to prevent those big turnovers that end up in the back of your net against Florida oh so often. And yeah, so that's going to be the key. And so it's going to be interesting to see if he gets the opportunity to do it. Ultimately, like I said, I think Florida's going to take it. I think Florida in 6. Carolina's a very good team. They have a ton of depth, but they just don't have the advantage anymore in terms of depth like they had in earlier rounds of the playoffs, and they just lack the star power. Like I've said, don't get me wrong, Freddie Anderson's great star goaltender. Jacob Slavin is the best defenseman in this series and probably the best left in the playoffs. but they need an Anderson miracle. And that's really the only way I see them coming away in this series, barring maybe Sebastian Aho or Andrei Svechnikov taking another step. I just think it's unlikely at this point. I think Florida's overall talent is going to knock Carolina out, and I think it's going to be in 6 games. So it's going to be interesting anyways. I still think it's going to be a great series. It'll be a lot of fun to watch, but yeah, that's kind of the big thing for me. And with that, I think we're going to wrap up here. A bit of a shorter episode today, but I'm hoping to get back another one later this week because Memorial Cup is starting on Thursday, and we'll talk a little bit more at length when that happens. And I also do want to talk a little bit about the Leafs, but that will have to be another episode as well. I'm kind of running out of time here. So, anyways, with that, you like what I'm saying? Leave a comment, like the video, whatever you want. Argue with me in the comments if you want. I'm probably not going to respond, but I appreciate the engagement on everything. It always helps the channel. So, yeah, thank you guys all for listening to the Ice Vision podcast. We'll see you all in the next episode.